Wow. Wow, good evening. Thank you to the CWA and to John Giro for bringing us together this evening and for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about the city of Cleveland, Ward 13, our neighborhoods, and what we can do to make Cleveland a safe, a peaceful, prosperous city. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to serve this community for so many years as a councilman, as a clerk of courts, as a mayor, a state senator, a United States congressman for 16 years. To me, to have had that opportunity has been such a privilege and a blessing. And now I want to serve once again as your mayor, to make sure that you have someone that you can trust, that you can rely on to do the right thing, even when the door is closed, to make sure that you're never going to be cheated by government, to make sure the government responds when you have questions and when you have concerns. Now, some of us go back many years, and I just want to point out, I've been busy the last few years finishing up work on this. It's a book that I wrote called The Division of Light and Power. And it is the story, this is the story of the fight against corporate sabotage, corporate espionage, bank directed overthrow of the city government, really. The mob directed assassination plots. It's all in here. And what's it about? It's all about the fight to save Muni Light. Now, some of you in this room will remember, going back then, that CEI did every dirty trick in the book to try to take over Muni Light. And at that time, Muni Light had rates that were 20% less than CEI, which is now called First Energy, and Muni Light is now called Cleveland Public Power. Some of you will remember that on December 15th, 1978, the biggest bank in Ohio, Cleveland Trust, told me, the mayor, that either I agree to sell Muni Light to CEI, which turned out to be the bank's business partner, or they, the bank, would not renew the city's credit on loans I hadn't even taken out. So I had to make a decision. Who did I stand for? Did it stand for the people and the right to own a public power system they call their own? Do I stand for the people's right to have lower electric rates? Do I stand for the people's right to have a mayor they could trust? Or was I going to capitulate to the bank and CEI and the media and just let them take over Cleveland Public Power? They created the circumstances that really most people wouldn't have known if I would have said, well, we don't have any choice. Got to sell. You know, I was only 31 years old, 32 years old. And yet, the people entrusted me with their lives, with their fortunes, with their sacred honor. And so I knew that light system wasn't mine to sell. And the pressure was extraordinary. 2 years before that moment, about actually a year, more like a year and 9 months before, when I was organizing a petition drive to stop the sale of Muni Light, a high-powered rifle shot came through my house and missed my head by a fraction of an inch. I didn't say anything about it at the time, although a police report was filed and it was reported, but I didn't make any comments on it. Later on, years later, a U.S. Senate subcommittee report on organized crime said that this was the mob working on behest of certain crooked business interests that wanted me out of the way. Police intelligence, a person by the name of Ed Kovacic, you may remember that name. He was head of the intelligence unit, later on became chief of police, Kucinich told me personally, he said, it's all about Muni Light. You're stopping people from making a lot of money. So even when my career and my life was on the line, I stood up for the people of Cleveland, because that's who I am. I can't be bought. I can't be bossed. No financial power could ever tell me what I have to do because I represent you. Now, I'm running for mayor because I look at our city. I love this city. And at the same time, I see what's happened, how poverty Cleveland's become one of the poorest cities in America and one of the most crime-ridden. We have one of the highest violent crime rates per capita of any city in the country. We have a homicide rate right now that is at almost 16% over what it was last year, and last year was a record year. There are drive-by shootings taking place in neighborhoods. And there are shootings that take place where the person may not be dead when they're first shot, and the assailant will come over to the victim and execute them, shoot them in the head several times to make sure they're dead. This is happening on the streets of our city. Police in our city have been told they can't pursue violent felons. What's happening in our city? The city's been sitting on an $80 million surplus for 2 years. Well, the police force has declined in numbers. They're letting a nest egg grow. They're hoarding money by not hiring police. I mean, that is an outrage. They're hoarding money, not hiring police. And they have $80 million in unencumbered funds and in a, quote, rainy day fund. And they're making it seem like, oh, this is what the banks want. This is what Wall Street wants. Well, who's taking care of what the people in Old Brooklyn want? Who's taking care of what the people in Tremont want? Who's taking care of what the people in Camps Corner, in Glenville, in Lee Harvard, in Huff? Who's taking care of that? They're taking care of the banks. They're not taking care of the city. Utility rates. Now, Cleveland Public Power, Muni Light, one of the places it started was Old Brooklyn. That's a historic birthplace of Muni Light. Muni Light started in two places, Old Brooklyn and Collinwood. And the way the city was created, Muni Light, is they annexed Brooklyn to the city because Brooklyn had its own power plant. And they annexed North Collinwood, which had its own power plant. And they created Cleveland Municipal Electric. It started with Mayor Johnson, who was mayor in 1901. And he created an electric company because he said, I believe in municipal ownership of all public service facilities, of parks, of waterworks, of schools, of electric systems. Because if you do not own them, they will in time own you. They'll rule your politics, corrupt your institutions, and finally destroy your liberties. When I stepped into politics in Cleveland, they were ruling the city of Cleveland and corrupting the institutions. And when I was mayor, I had to take a stand to make sure it didn't destroy our democratic liberties by taking over that system. And by taking that position, the city of Cleveland saved hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes and in utility rates over a period of time. Today, CPP's rates are higher than First Energy's. How the heck did that happen? It went from being 20% cheaper to more than 10% expensive. Yet, just like the city is hoarding money in the general fund, well, we need police, they won't hire them. So too, the city is hoarding money at Muni Light. They're sitting on a nest egg of about $30 million surplus. Now, what I've said is if the people elect me, I will immediately move for a cut of the residential rates for public power customers to 10%. that will cost approximately $5 million. It's totally affordable. Totally. I've also said, when I've looked at, because we want to make, in doing that, we'll make Cleveland Public Power more competitive. More people will want to have it. And we'll save the other money, we'll keep making repairs to the system. I mean, we all know how corrupt First Energy is and CEI. I mean, that's what this whole book is about. This book is about the corruption of the politics of Cleveland, and later on, they corrupted the whole state. They bought the legislature. I mean, this book was is the warning of what happens. And so I look at right now at all of the Cleveland Public Power residential customers. I'm telling you, get it. I'll reduce the rates 10% as soon as I get into office. I did some further checking and reading the city's budget. The water department, which is getting ready for a new round of water rate increases, has a $400 million surplus. $400 million. What I've said, when I take office, I'll move for a 10% reduction in water rates. You know, it's time that we give the people some of that money back. The city has no right hoarding money. You think of this. They were even cutting off people's water during the COVID. Well, they're sitting on this kind of a surplus. It's a sin to do that. But the city went ahead and did it. So the sewer department, which the city has members on the sewer board, the sewer department has a $300 million surplus. They're getting ready for a whole new round of sewer rate increases. 4.7% plus. I will instruct the appointees to the sewer authority to move for a 10% cut for the Cleveland people in the city of Cleveland. I mean, you think about it. We have one of the highest poverty rates. We have seniors in particular who are just trying to hold on. And they keep raising utility rates. What is this about? See, I know about utility rates. And I'm not beholden to any of the interests. I want to keep the rates up. You know, you can go through every area of city involvement. And the city is being run, not for the people in the neighborhoods. It's being run for a financial elite that doesn't even live in the city. And that is a fact. And that financial elite, by the way, is at work in this election. Now, I don't know if any of you, got the mailing. How many of you got this comic book? Okay. I mean, look, I've waited my whole life to be a superhero, right? And then we answered it. You know, it said Dennis the Menace, and I came back with not a menace for 44 years, but a menace for 54 years. You know, a menace to banks who redline, to utilities who price gouge, a menace to crooked politicians, a menace to violent criminals, and a menace to a lazy, wasteful city hall. So, you know, we move so quickly. Once we heard about this, some people got this in the mail the next day. They're not dealing with a rookie here, right? But what this is dark money. We don't really know where this money is coming from. Well, we can guess, okay? It comes from the suburbs. It comes from wealthy interests. And they have to be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars because they sent this not only to voters, people who were not voters got them. People got it in their post office box. People got it in the suburbs. I figure they sent out $250,000 to 300,000 of these. Printing and postage, you know, it adds up. So guess what? Yeah, I was invited to come over here. Thank you, John, and the CWA for making it possible for us to get together. I was invited to come over here, and wouldn't you know it, just on the way over here, I'm told that Channel 3 ran a story about what the source of this is. It's really interesting. Listen to this. This is a news flash from Channel 3. And what they say, here's the headline. Cleveland Mayor Frank Jackson's former campaign manager linked to anti-Dennis Kucinich group. It goes on to say that Jackson named attorney Michael Bowen to run his campaign in the final weeks of his last election. Though he's retiring at the end of the year, Bowen appears to have a hand in this year's race. And it talks about Bowen and his wife are linked to the paperwork for Citizens for Change, a political action committee attacking Kucinich, and it goes on and on. So this is exposed. This is dark money. It is dirty money, and it is coming from somebody connected to the last mayor's race with Frank Jackson, who this year has made an endorsement in the mayor's race, and we know who that is. So what are they trying? What are they afraid of? What are they trying to stop? They want to control City Hall for themselves. They're willing to do anything. They'll sell their souls in order to have power. What does that mean? I mean, you think about it. What kind of people are these? I mean, craven and vile and not thinking at all about the interests of the people of Cleveland. All they're interested in is grabbing that office, getting whatever they can from it for themselves. No. I'm here for you. And if you want a mayor, you can call your own, then help me in this campaign. We have a nice turnout here, but for those who weren't able to make it, go to Kucinich.com right now, Kucinich.com, Kucinich. And when you do that, you can sign up for a sign, you can sign up to help in the campaign. This is a people-driven campaign. And all the money in the world isn't going to overpower the people of Cleveland when they get together. I remember years ago, then I'm going to go to questions in a minute. I remember years ago when everybody said Muni Light was done. Forget about it, write it off. People of Cleveland came together and they showed real power. And their power went up against the established interests and the people won. And I was privileged to lead that effort, but I didn't do it alone, the people did it. We had another victory too. Years ago, looked like we were going to lose our steel mill. And the people of Cleveland rallied. The media was sending out cartoons of me giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to a dinosaur, the steel mill, right? Oh, it's dead, forget about it. We saw something else. People came together, we saved the mill and thousands of jobs. Today, we have to save our city. And we can come together and do it again. East side, west side, we can come together in the interests of the people of Cleveland and have a city that's safe, that's peaceful, that's prosperous, that, like old Brooklyn, is dedicated to this community and loves Cleveland. Thank you very much. Thank you. So let's, I'm glad to hear from you. I'd love to have some of you help in the closing weeks of this primary, whether you're putting up a sign, making phone calls, or any other way that you might be able to help. So let's go to some questions right now. Anyone? Did the lady, I think you were first. And I would ask you to talk loud because air conditioning just went on. That what? The question is about the $511 million in surplus funds. Some of it's already being spent by City Hall. But they can only spend half of it. They can't spend more than half. So the new mayor, if it's me, it'll be access to half of those funds. I'm going to ask you a question. What would you like to see the money spent on? What I want you need to know that there is a separate bill for infrastructure. So while some of these funds can be spent on infrastructure, there's a separate bill. And one of the things, because you sent me to Congress for 16 years, I know everybody in Washington. I've known Joe Biden since 1972. So, I don't have any problem with either walking in the White House or in Congress and saying, this is what Cleveland needs. We have special needs here. But what would you like to see? How would you like to see the American Rescue Plan money spent? And then we'll get around. How? So what would you like the money spent on?
Okay,
safety, housing, health.
Safety, housing, dams, dam recovery. I know a few years ago there was a situation with a lot of dams in the area, so I don't know if that's going to repair.
Well, how many here would like to see? How many here would like to see money spent on improving public safety? Just a show of hands. Okay, I just want to say there's one lady who has both of her hands up. The room generally, for those of you who are watching on live stream, the room generally is in favor of that, but there's other concerns too. Okay, I'm going to go around and everybody who has their hand raised. That gentleman's next. And I'm going to ask you to speak. If you speak louder, I won't.
One of the questions that I have for you is with the presence of the weapons and the narcotics that have recently resurfaced on our streets. Is there any way to go back in the history of Mayor Jackson's terms and see what was confiscated and what was also turned back out into the streets?
Well, let me talk about guns and drugs. First of all, can you go back through the records? Yes, but I'm not sure where that would lead. If somebody has some information about some irregularities, look, I was chair of a congressional investigative subcommittee. I took on Wall Street. I'm thoroughly able to take on any corruption that's going on inside city government, believe me.
What do you think your grandson's got him?
Well, I don't know if any money or guns or drugs left. That's something I certainly would look into, or any irregularities. I want to be very careful here about, except to say that I am determined that to any extent that corruption existed involving the city government, we'll eliminate it. Let me tell you why I know this. The last time I was mayor, I was able to reduce city spending by 18% through eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. I don't have any. I can look at something in a heartbeat and I can tell you if there's something wrong about it. That's the kind of experience I have. And so, if you just, let's win this. And then you come to me with the story and then I'll check it out. The lady there.
My question is, I questioned Kelly when he came around and I asked what they were doing with all the money they received for the COVID in our city. And I said, don't you think the employees who have worked throughout the whole pandemic get a little something like the county did? Oh, no. That's all going into infrastructure. That's where that money is going. That's what he had told me.
The question is about the gentlelady made a question, had a question to the council president and asked whether or not the funds that were coming to the city during the COVID period could also be shared with those city employees who would be considered essential employees who are working all the time. Would they be able to get more money? Right? Isn't that's your question, right? Okay, so and the gentlelady just explained that the council president rejected that idea. Let me say the approach that I have with city workers. I'm the working person's candidate. I understand when people put their lives on the line, as people did who worked during COVID. There's no question about it. And we're still not out of that period. I mean, we all have social distancing here. You know, I'm at least 20 feet away from anybody in this room. You're all spread out 6 feet apart. That's great. But those who are working every day, who are required to go in, absolutely they should get a premium. And as mayor, I'm determined that city workers who are working through this period of COVID will get extra money. You know, we'll work it out with the union leaders exactly what that amount should be. But there's no question about it. People are taking a risk. And they should be compensated for that. I mean, you know, we see these workers, if they're not there, the police, the fire, waste collection, the people fixing the streets, they're taking a risk.
I'm in the tax department. They said,
Tax.
city tax, income tax. They said that City Hall had purchased these purifiers for the air or whatever. Well, nobody was in City Hall really during all this over a year. We were at work every day throughout. Do you think they would have brought that in question? Why don't you bring that here? There's people, yeah, we're limited staff, but there's still people, you know? And they said, oh, we bring it in every Friday. Nobody's ever seen it. It's like they just kind of pushed it to the side and like, hey, you're there, you're working, that's all that
Well,
matters.
let me, look, I have a different approach. We treasure our city workers. And if I have some ideas about how we can improve, I'll give it. But, you know, I'm not running to be the boss. You know, I'm running to be a mayor who loves those who serve and who respects their service and treats people with dignity and respect. I don't believe in a top-down approach. I don't go for a martinet approach. What I appreciate is the dignity that work provides and how each worker should be valued. We're all, you know, we've all been in a position where we've had supervisors. We don't want any supervisors who are cruel. We want people that are going, you know, everybody has to do their job. We got that. But thank you for calling that to my attention. Next question. Yes.
I have a question as so much of this statement. First of all, and a concern. I've got your back. I've had your back. I was Republican trained as well. I was so grateful that you did. My concern is 33 years ago, we bought our home on St. Mark, off of 105th and 117th. I own a business in Oak Brook. We work hard, trying to take care of our properties. And it's so disgusting when, on our street in particular, the older people have died off. The family didn't want it. They sold it to investors. Now we've got renters coming in to these beautiful homes and just destroying them, moving out and moving out after 6 months and another one coming in. And the neighborhood's going down. I drive through Ohio City, Detroit Shoreway, and all those neighborhoods that I run when I was a kid, and they're beautiful. And I want to live there. Because I don't feel safe when I'm there. I don't want to talk with my neighbors. I'm no better than anybody, but I'm a lot better than some of these people. And now I'm forced to live with them. We called a councilman. He came out. We had, was it Brian Malone? He came out, our neighbor, that house was just a dump. And he comes out and, you know, we're telling him this stuff. He said, well, you know, people are allowed to live the way they want to live. Really? Really? And yet I can't leave. We're in a situation where I don't have enough money to flee the city. So all I have to do is to fight. And I just want to make sure that you're going to help us.
Yeah, well,
Because
let
I
me,
believe it. I'm born and raised here.
well, you know, the neighborhood, you mentioned St. Mark's. I mean, I live in that neighborhood now. And of course, you know, I know Old Brooklyn well because I represented it in so many different capacities. And have been through every street in this community at one time or another. The expectations that you have are reasonable. You want to make sure the community doesn't decline. And if people move into a community, if they need help in learning about what the expectations are of people wanting to keep the neighborhood up, we need to do that. You know, one of the things that's happened is that this meeting is remarkable, by the way. And again, I want to thank the CWA for providing the hall and for John helping to facilitate this meeting. You know, first of all, because of COVID, it's hard to have meetings anymore. We're all spread out, but it used to be, you'd have ward meetings all over the city. You'd have hundreds of people show up. You'd have block club meetings and neighborhood club meetings. So much of that is gone. It's what we call the civic infrastructure. It's gone. We need to rebuild that. And when we rebuild it, people who are new to a community will be given an opportunity to learn, you know, this is what we do to keep our community up. Invite them to participate. There's a lot of isolation today, I'll tell you. When you take crime and COVID and poverty, oh my God, I mean, the isolation is palpable. I'll give you an example. We're going door to door, getting, you know, during the campaign, and only 1 out of every 6 doors will open. People aren't opening their doors. You know, they don't want to open their doors. The society is more closed today. Well, we need to rebuild the civic infrastructure and open it up again. And even we're going to have to adjust to this COVID period. It may become a feature of our lives, but we'll adjust to it and we'll come together again. And, you know, we'll be careful and, you know, we'll be socially distant and wash our hands and wear masks when we're in close crowds and things like that. But at the same time, we have to realize that this sense of community that held all of us together for so long is being lost. And while the internet is marvelous, and it's great that we can be together this way, there really is no substitute for being able to reach out. Yes.
I was born in Deaconess. I've lived in Old Brooklyn the whole time. I don't like that I got a councilman that lives in Slavic Village. I don't like that Old Brooklyn has 2 different councilmen. I think my councilman needs, the only time I see my councilman is if there's a photo op going on. That's it.
It's the only time we see ours.
Like, what's up?
Well,
I don't know what's going on in your ward.
The gentlelady raises the question about ward boundaries and why the wards were drawn so that part of Old Brooklyn extends into Slavic Village. Is that your point?
Yeah, Old Brooklyn isn't that big that one councilman can't handle Old Brooklyn.
Your point's well taken, and when council redistricts, they won't do that this year, this election.
I miss the little police substations we used to have, when the policemen would be,
well,
it's bad.
We
I
need to-
have garbage dealers on Broadview Road selling washers and dryers on the sidewalk with garbage next door selling used stuff. It looks like crap. I mean, it's bad.
Well, first of all, no matter who your councilman is, I can tell you this, that as mayor, my approach is going to be very service intensive. And if you can't get through, first hour of every day, I'll start work at 8:30 in the day. From 8:30 to 9:30, Monday through Friday, that will be a time for people to call me directly and be able to get through the bureaucracy.
We got the Cleveland Zoo. We got people coming from all over to go to the zoo, and they got to drive by this garbage dump on Broadview to get to the zoo.
The lady talks about people dumping garbage along Broadview near the zoo, and what the message that sends about a community where others are striving to take care of their property, right? And it's wrong. And so what I want to do, and it goes to the previous point, I want to make sure that neighborhoods are kept clean.
That's
Look,
right.
how many of you, I mean, I've seen this so frequently lately, it is, it makes me very unhappy. How many of you just see people roll the window down of a car and just throw stuff out?
Even throw the animals out.
They're walking.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. We will have a very strong campaign to challenge the people who litter. Anybody that's dumping or littering in this city, we're going to go after them. We'll give somebody, first time we can give them a warning. Next time we can fine them $1,000 or put them in jail or whatever. We are not going to let people, make this city into a garbage dump. And so I will tell you that I have a great deal of concern about what you're saying, because when you work so hard to keep a neighborhood up, and then you see somebody just throw garbage out. No, we're not.
We sweep the streets in our neighborhood, we clean all the crap along the curb, we try.
Well, you're going to have help. Next question, the lady in blue, and then the lady in pink.
Same thing I've been doing for 40 years, animal control. We need a spay and neuter clinic. We have one. It's out by the wayside, and people can't afford to get their pets spayed or neutered, and I'm still trapping animals after 40 years. We finally got a new kennel. It's not enough.
She brings it up so point. People are dumping their cats and dogs in neighborhoods. She's sorry that. I also want to bring up the rescue of her. She's like, President, last month, I pulled a cat off the street that was so emaciated that I got into by a rescue group I work with. To the vet on 4th of July. He turned out to be spayed or neutered. Or he was neutered. We had kids. He started to death. He's 1 year old.
Well, for those who are watching on live stream, both of the comments have just been made relate to people who really don't care about their dogs and cats. They just leave them. And the fact that the city is not providing enough help for spay and neuter clinics. I will say this, my wife and I have had 2 rescue dogs. We had 3 in the first group. One of them lived for 19 years. And it was a Beagle Basset, and we had a Beagle. That was Harry. Lucy lived for 16 years, and she didn't make it more than a couple weeks after, actually more than a week after Harry passed. They were a pair. And then we had George, who was a black Cocker Spaniel, who made it for 15 years. And they all passed away within a couple months of each other. It was heartbreaking. And we said that we'd never get any more dogs. We couldn't take it anymore. And that lasted for a couple of days. And so we went to a pet a protection center, and we got 2 more dogs that are just fantastic, and we love them so much. And I want you to know that as someone who loves animals, dogs and cats, I will see to it that the city fully staffs and provides the services for spaying and neuter, and also to when strays are picked up or somebody leaves a dog or a cat, that's a horrible thing to do to an animal. It is horrible. Well, it's horrible. When you look, anybody who's ever been close to a pet, I mean, these are sentient beings. They're smart. They're aware. They feel. They have a wisdom that's different than humans. But you don't mistreat animals. You can't do that. And you have to. These are God's creatures. You don't in any way abuse them. So I'm with you on that. And it's something that I feel very strongly about. The gentlelady, go ahead.
When I'm kicked off the house, everybody's got a 6-foot-high fence. They go with a fence and you see who's as high as the fence. Oh.
and you tell them nicely, how about the back of the backyard? Oh, I'll get to it. And then you call the city, and then the city sends an inspector, and they're gonna do a half-assed job. To me, there should be a city ordinance, and the inspector could come up the driveway and check the person's backyard. I have two neighbors whose backyard butts against mine in the house next door, and it's terrible. And I can't see any reason why the police can't go after these speeders with a 13-year-old that stolen somebody's car and is speeding down Newport Avenue and the cops can't chase them. To me, put the kid's name on the front page and put his picture on the front page. I don't care if he's a juvenile or what. If you're 13 years old and you can steal my car, I want you crucified. I have to pay for that mortgage, and then and where's mommy? Mommy entertaining her boyfriend.
Well, let me,
And then, that's true. And then two, it takes 3 years to cut down the dead tree when I can take my chainsaw and cut down the tree in 1 hour. And then the stump is left there for 4 years. Where's these city's workers? Are they in the bar having a great time? I want them to do their job. If they don't do their job, fire them.
well,
And if you need an assistant, Mr. Commissioner, I'm your assistant.
remember you made the offer.
That's right. And I have 6 oh, yes.
Dave,
The APL.
let's make sure we get her name. We're going to sign her up.
The APL.
And she's going to work in shade trees with a chainsaw.
And you can get your cat, do another job, for $10 at the APS. They sell with the feral cat, bring them in a little carriage, and they'll pay. Yes.
There's a
$10.
couple points that have been raised here by the young lady from Old Brooklyn.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is, first of all, neighbors who don't take care of their property. Here again, I'm a firm believer in a soft word turneth away wrath. That sometimes you just need to have somebody talk to them, and the city can have somebody talk before putting a hammer down. That's kind of the approach that I'd like to take. And said, that's what you got to do. I don't like to do that, but if you have to, you have to. And the next thing is about speeders. I don't know how much of this came to Old Brooklyn, but some of you saw this, right, in the mail about the dirt bikes that are going up and down streets at a high rate of speed. Some of these kids are armed, right, shooting guns off, and I have a different view towards law enforcement. I think that when you have hundreds of people riding these bikes up and down, basically taking over the streets, nah, I'm not buying it. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want these kids to get hurt. But I'll tell you, those days are over once I take office as mayor. We will do everything we have to stop any gangs from going, whether they're gangs in name or they're just formed, from going up and down and terrorizing people. I'm not going to buy that. Now, we do have to have we got to make sure we take care of the children of our city. They're children who are looking for help, for guidance, for an outlet for their energy. We were all young once, we know that. And we got to pay attention to that. I'm not interested in putting a bunch of kids in jail. However, when we were all growing up, if there's a point, if you got out of line, you were pulled up short, and you say you can't do this. And there has to be, as mayor, it's going to be my job to say, okay, we're going to lay down the law. We'll be flexible at first, but after a while, there is no flexibility. We're going to make sure that people know that they can't go up and down the streets and just expect they'll keep their bikes or that they won't be prosecuted. So, I again, soft touch at first, but afterwards that's over. We're going to try to bring people to compliance. And so we expect that we can have a safe and a peaceful city. So your point is well taken, but there is one more comment I want to make with respect to that. How many have heard that the police are actually told not to pursue violent felons? Okay, most of the hands in the room have gone up. See that when I take office as mayor, that ends. That's done. If police are in pursuit of a violent felon, their instructions will be go get them. You have to use your judgment. We're going to employ a helicopter, okay? Because if you can have a helicopter that can go 80, 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, to me, it's much better than a car. The helicopter can track a car. But you know what's happening now? They haven't fixed a helicopter since October. It's been out. They're sitting on $80 million and they can't fix a helicopter. Meanwhile, they're paying the helicopter pilot for not flying. This is City Hall today. This is the way they work. So we'll give the patrol officers discretion. If they're not sure, they can call a supervisor. We'll put the helicopter in the air, and anyone who commits a crime in Cleveland is going to know you're not going to get away with it. We will chase you. We will follow you. We will, arrest you and prosecute you. That message needs to go out. Otherwise, our neighborhoods will fall apart. You can't let people just run wild. And that, unfortunately, is what is happening. And the police are demoralized because they can't enforce the law. Well, again, I want to rebuild morale inside the police department as well. Okay, next question, the gentleman. And then we'll go back to it.
With the police department.
A little louder.
Dealing with the police department, over on Searsdale, we've had one house that's had 5 overdoses in the last year. We've had 2 children get shot over there, and I had a gun pulled on me two weeks ago. The police were called on every situation. When they came out when the 2 kids got shot, they did absolutely nothing. And not only was I standing outside, so were my neighbors, looking at the police going, they had something to do with it right there. We were pinpointing who did it. The police did nothing. One of the neighbors walked outside, turned around and said, I'm not calling you MFers no more. I'm calling him because he gets more done in 15 minutes than you guys get done all day. Unfortunately, my neighbor was pointing at me. Now I'm told by the police department that I cannot do what I have been doing, which is chasing the drug dealers off our street. I don't want you in front of my house. I don't want you anywhere remotely close to me. Keep moving. Okay.
Oh.
The police department is limited, and somehow or another it was handed down through the ranks that they cannot go after these people. That needs to stop, and we also need to bring more police personnel back.
I'm here to tell you that once I take office as mayor, we will pass on through the ranks that the law is to be enforced in the city. It's to be enforced impartially. It's to be enforced in a constitutionally aware manner. It's to be enforced in a racially sensitive manner. It is to be enforced. The police will not be told not to pursue. They will not be told don't make an arrest. They will not be told to look the other way. They'll be expected to do their jobs. They'll be expected to enforce the law. What I want to do is to help the Cleveland police become an effective crime-fighting force that can help make Cleveland a safe, peaceful, and eventually a prosperous community. We can do that, but you have to have the intent to do that. And believe me, I have the intent to do that if you help me win this election. Question there, gentlemen. And if you speak up, I'll be able to hear you.
For almost 100 years, the West Side Market ran like a well-oiled machine. The Jackson administration has let it slip in a complete dire straits. Just a few weeks ago, every vendor had to throw every piece of food away, and it isn't the first time it's happened. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of prime inventory has been thrown away in the last 2 to 5 years, and despite every plea, they've been ignored. What would you do to the West Side Market?
Questions about the West Side Market, thank you. First of all, I've been shopping at the West Side Market since I was attending school at St. John Cantress High School years ago. You know, I lived on Broadway, off of Broadway. I take the number 80, I take the Broadway bus to the number 14 to Public Square, and then catch the 7484, which would go by the West Side Market. And occasionally I'd stop at the market for coffee in the morning. And, you know, I'm aware of the market and have been, and I've shopped there. I still shop there. Right after that power outage that you're talking about, I went down there. I mean, you know, my wife and I are there a lot of the times, and not all the time, because, you know, we go, like most people, as you go there, you go once a week. But we're down there. But when that power outage occurred, I was there. All they needed, and been asking for 3 years, the Merchants Association, the Tenants Association, 3 years ago, they asked for a backup power generator. 3 years ago. And it cost a couple $100,000. So what? You're running a market. You have an outage. You have vendors who have meats and other things that have to keep refrigerated. That's part of doing business. But the city has deliberately neglected the West Side Market, but they hire a consultant to tell them how to run it. Just like they hired a consultant to tell them how to run the recycling program. They hire a consultant to tell them how to run CPP. Well, you know, you don't have to hire a consultant, hire a mayor who knows how to run a market, a power system, a recycling program. And with respect to the West Side Market, we're going to put that market back on its feet. We'll make sure that all those stalls on the outside and the inside are filled. People will want to be in the market. We'll have artists and musicians, and it'll be a place that Clevelanders will celebrate. And you know what we'll do? We'll make sure that organics and a wider range of food is available there. That market will return it to the great days that it was years ago. We'll make sure that West Side Market is a place that people will want to come. And I've got this other idea, which I'll share with you right now. I want to create a market card for people who live in the city. So if you go to the market and you live in the city, you get a little bit of a discount. Now, people would say, well, what do you mean? The city's going to subsidize the purchases at the market? Yeah. The city will subsidize a football team, a basketball team, a baseball team, a gambling casino, a hotel that's failing, you know, a paint company. Can it subsidize the market and help people get a deal on their food? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm the mayor of the people. I'm not looking at anything but how we can make this city the place that the people like, that you want to go to places. You want to bring your friends there when they come in from out of town. And you want to make sure that people can get healthy and nutritious foods and support the vendors who are getting hammered. They were driving a lot of them out of business by raising the rent and not providing any services. They wouldn't fix refrigeration units. They wouldn't fix an elevator. They wouldn't fix doors. They wouldn't fix mesh that is meant to separate, you know, make windows safer. I mean, I go down there, and I will tell you something. I went to City Hall twice, specifically to talk to the mayor about this. That's the only, I went, you know, look, I'm a former mayor. I'm not interested in telling a present mayor how to run his business. I'm running for mayor now, that's different. But I went down there. In the last few years, the only thing I went down there was to talk to Mayor Jackson about the market. You know, I told him some of the things that we all know about, and there was just, you know, nothing changed. And I'm sorry about that. Now, I know I have known Frank Jackson for, I don't know, 40 years when he started. You know, I go back a ways in city politics, but I don't know what happened. There has been neglect, but it won't be neglected anymore. And I know the market. I know what it can be. I mean, the clock doesn't even work.
That's right.
I mean, think about it. The clock doesn't even work. Well, there's a lot of clocks that are going to be fixed in the city. Yes, sir.
I wonder what the position is on critical race theory as it filters down and impacts the public school system.
Yeah. The question deals with critical race theory. You know, let's face it. in the history of the United States, we're a country which has a lot of different narratives going on at the same time. We're all familiar with what happened to Native people and how the land was taken. You know, we grew up with cowboy and Indian stories, right? But then we found out a little bit more that there's more to that story, and there's a chapter of American history that we need to be aware of, and then the institution of slavery, which was the cruelest institution that humanity ever created, making another person basically property and less than property. I think that it's good for people to be aware. It's good for children to be aware of our history, and we can't. It's not that we're ashamed of it. We need to be aware of our history. Critical race theory goes a little bit further, though, and it in a way it fixes blame on a group, on people, and we've got to be careful. And so what I want to do, let me tell you a little about my philosophy and the way I look at things. I see the world as one. That's how I see the world. I see the world as interconnected and interdependent. I see us all as one. We're all one. That we're all one people, whatever our race, color, creed, we're all one. And that I believe in human unity. I think that's the undeniable truth. Now, we need not be afraid of learning about things, but one must be very careful about making it seem as though one group of people alone was responsible for conditions. We want our country to unite. We need to forgive each other. Let's face it. Forgiveness is part of all of our lives. Every day, we find that forgiveness is a great power. And there's a poem called Prometheus Unbound by the poet Shelley, which talks about forgiving woes darker than night. It's tough sometimes. And I think that, 20 years ago, it may surprise some of you to know that I started the discussion about reparations. The form of them is what is important. We need to repair the breach. There is a breach that's been created. The poverty in this city, 20% of the people are living on $10,000 or less a year. A third of the city is at or below the poverty line. The poverty in Cleveland is unbelievable. And it's generally, on the east side, not only, but it happens to be in neighborhoods of color. And let me tell you something that happened that I investigated as chairman of a congressional investigative subcommittee. The banks, everybody wants a decent home, and many of us are privileged to have a decent home. That's the centerpiece of our lives. And I'll tell you, as coming from a family, when I was growing up, my parents never owned a home. We were renters. We lived in, as the family grew to 7 kids, we did not have a home. And we had trouble finding rent. And so by the time I was 17, this is me, Dennis Kucinich, who served as your mayor, who served in the United States Congress, who ran for president twice. I'm telling you, we couldn't find rent. And we kept moving, and we lived in 21 different places by the time I was 17, including a couple cars. I know what people are going through, and it's hell. We were evicted several times. I know what it's like. And so the poverty that we have in this city needs to be addressed. And when I was chair of a congressional subcommittee, I investigated what happened in the inner city in Cleveland, where the banks went into neighborhoods, primarily African-American neighborhoods, and they sold people on upgrading their homes, on taking out a loan, on buying a new home. And they knew people didn't have the documentation. The banks knew this. They knew the people couldn't make payments, but they sold them anyway. People signed up. After, when the payments became due, they fell behind. They lost the home. Thousands of people lost their home. You drive around the east side and you will see the effects of neighborhoods that have been decimated. And the banks did this. Why? Because they wanted to bundle the mortgages into what's called mortgage-backed securities. And then they bundled them into Wall Street investments called collateralized debt obligations. And then they further wrapped them in to securities that were very exotic, and the leverage of the actual money may have been 30 to 1, 40 to 1. And they knew what the banks knew what they were doing. But then when the market crashed, and all of us know about this because the value of our homes went down. The value of our homes went down. When the market crashed, people who tried to buy a better home lost it all. They lost it all. Something has to be done about that. People got cheated out of their life's dream. So I can tell you, you elect me mayor, I will see that there's justice for everybody in this city. We'll protect our homeowners who want to keep their good neighborhoods, and we're going to try to repair the breach that was created by the banks who absolutely devastated communities. And you know, I mean, how do I know this? Because I was chair of the top congressional investigative subcommittee in the United States Congress looking at the subprime meltdown. I knew all the details. I had bankers come in front of me and have to raise their right hand. And I knew they were lying. I will tell you that as the mayor of Cleveland, I will be mayor of all of our people. I'll unite this community. I'll make sure that the truth is told about everything. But I'm not going to be held to a standard of teaching a certain type of course that might be popular in some places, but frankly, the people of Cleveland in their history are way ahead of a lot of places around the country. And our understanding about matters is way ahead of many places around the country. So thank you. That is an important question, and it's one that we'll have a longer discussion about, because the mayor is not just head of the city government, he's head of the schools too. Or she, if the lady gets elected. Okay, a few more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. And hopefully I can get some of you to help. Lady in the back, and then I'll go over here.
I remember way at the beginning of the lottery, one of the arguments for a lottery that in our state was that the money would go towards schools. And I myself have not seen anything that it looked like it's been, going towards schools. We should have had bands back and football teams back, except for the amount of money that's spent on lotteries. Now, maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't think I am.
Well, no, you're not mistaken. The question is about the lottery, and I know all about it because, unlike some of the people in this room who are too young to remember, I was there when the lottery was created. And the reason why the lottery was created was to provide funding for education and to, in a way, to supplement the educational funding. And it was supposed to go for that. That's what it was about. But what they did as the lottery went on, instead of giving the money to the schools, they found other uses for lottery funds. And that kept the burden of supporting the schools on the property owners.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
So, this is the kind of game that was played. Now, the mayor doesn't have any control over the lottery, but I want to make this clear. There'll be a lot of things that I don't have control over, but I sure am going to get involved in them. And the lottery will be one, and CMHA is going to be another, because CMHA has neglected its tenants. A lot of them can't get any help at all, and they're living in dire conditions, okay? The sewer board's going to be another. I have 2 appointments, but I can tell you, I see they're sitting on a $300 million surplus. We'll get a deduction in our rates. I promise you that. There's a lot of places where I'll use your power as your mayor to go into those areas that you care about that no one pays attention to. That's what I'm about, right?
Yes.
I'm willing to ask questions that no one else will. And because you elect me, no one else, I'm free to ask those questions. And you know what? It's a lot of fun. Okay, cool. Yes.
All right, so I got a handful of things before I ask you. One, I'm really now, I was already upset. Now I'm more upset that I find out we have all this money in surplus. That just makes me crazy. For years, we've been screaming for some kind of police presence. Not that we want police driving up and down all the
No, I
streets
got
of Brooklyn. We don't need that. We're a pretty tight community. There's still a lot of good people left. But it never, we never understood why, especially in the dark hours, there can't be at least one, if not 2 cars patrolling, showing themselves when it's dark, when all the theft started rising. And not only that, to stay on the safety issue, with the surplus as well, your infrastructure surplus. Over the years, they pick and choose the street here, pick and choose the street there. Our gas lines, especially on my street, were supposed to be done 10 years ago. I mean, they're over 100 years old. And don't you think come in, they patch here, they patch there. The sewers are 100 years old. The way they're tapped into these houses, you're fighting with the city whose responsibility it is because they're comboed off. So you got to go in there and you got to do the whole thing. You can't just do that. You have to do the sewers. You got to do the gas lines. You got to do the street all at once, you know. And to top that off on the safety issue, this councilman as well was questioned about the fire equipment. Our fire equipment, I love that I have this fire station right close to me in our neighborhood. The guys are great. You know, we need a little substation, police station too. But the fire station, okay, diesel engines, they go 1,000,000 miles, 500,000 miles, you know, it's still a good truck. But our trucks, you know how long it takes for them to put miles on that truck? Their perimeter is not that big.
Well,
They can go around and around and around. So our councilman says, oh, you got a lot of life left in that truck. Well, I don't care about the engine. The safety equipment is out there. You know what I mean?
yeah, we want our police and our fire and our
They
EMS.
should be getting new equipment up there. They're running on old
Well,
equipment. I can't tell you,
look,
unless
I
you're
have-
not here tonight, I can't tell you how old the engines are. but
The
our
ge-
fire equipment is ancient.
the gentle lady made, for those watching by streaming, and we're going to wrap this up in a moment. The gentle lady made some observations. First of all, about the surpluses. And that's, you know, it's a spectacular amount of money to be holding on to.
Doesn't the councilman also get extra money every year?
Each council person gets $500,000 to use at their discretion.
But he tells us we have no money, there's no money for this, there's no money. for
Well,
that.
let me, look, people want, yeah, the room here is abuzz with questions about what the heck's happening with the money. We know there's money. I'll say it again. I will eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. And I'm confident that in doing that I'll be able to come up with a minimum of $30 million that was wasted, minimum. And we'll turn that into fixing fire trucks, police, EMS, hiring more police. We could have hired, you figure, to hire 10 police costs roughly it's under $1 million. We're sitting on $80 million. They're saying, oh, we can't spend it. We have to hold on to it. Our bond rating, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, there's no problem with the covenants that we have in bond, you know, in paying off our debt. We're okay. But they're using that as an excuse, my guess, to give the money to somebody else and not to the people. Just, you know, I mean, you think about it. They want to, they're hoarding money so they can give it away. Now, with me, I want it to go back into services. So I will immediately go to put on several classes of police. You know what's happening right now? Police are retiring and leaving the department at a rate 2 times that of which new people are coming on. They can't keep up, so the numbers of uniformed police keep dropping. And right now it's under 1,400, it's probably something like 1,326 or something patrol officers. We're 200 patrol officer down as to what was budgeted, which means they budget for close to 1,600. They have 200 less. Save the money, build the nest eggs, right? At our expense, at the expense of our safety, at the expense of the safety of the policemen and the firemen. There are policemen who are working double shifts and are worn out. Well, at the same time, the city is paying the overtime, right? This is crazy the way this whole thing is being handled. So I want to see new fire trucks, new EMS equipment, replace police cars that are not in good shape. We can do that. There are federal funds also available that I'll go after for that. I want to see the police well paid, but I'll tell you, I'll take responsibility. People wonder, well, you know, what about the police not doing their job? Let me be very clear about this. I will support the police when they do the right thing, but if an individual policeman goes astray, don't come to me. You know, really. I mean, look, I want to support our police, but at the same time, we got to make sure that they're constitutionally aware, racially sensitive, professional.
We do need a substation here in North
We're,
Brooklyn. There's one 30 years ago.
One more.
we're going to, I just want to finish that thought. I want to finish my thought. We'll make sure we're going to have the professional crime fighting force. And police just need a mayor that'll work with them and stand with them and help them do their job. But the mayor has to be in charge. That's what the city charter, Article 71, says the mayor shall be the chief conservator of the peace. That's what it says. But unfortunately, some people just don't want to do that. They don't want the responsibility. Well, I'll take the responsibility. I'll be responsible. And I think the police will like that because right now there's no direction. Okay, last question, John.
Okay, I got a question. A couple years ago, me, Cheryl, Joyce, a couple other people were all at a neighborhood safety watch meeting. And Kelly agreed that you would show up to this, which is the only reason that I went to. So my question to Kelly was, why can't we have the same police response time or close to the response time that Parma has? We neighbor Parma, we're butt up right against each other. Parma calls the cops, they're there in 2 minutes. We call the cops. If they show up, maybe 2 hours. His response to me, if you don't like it, move to Parma. So and this one I made up, people were here. So my response was, my buddy was council president in Parma for years, and that's a horrible political thing to say to your constituents, the people who vote for you. And he said, if you don't like it, run against me. Mm-hmm. So last week, 2 years later, his wife did apologize to me on Facebook, said he was probably having a bad day that day, because sometimes he misses the fence with his kids and everything else, which I get. I'm not doubting that he's not a good family man, that he was upset. But to talk to your people like that is completely absurd. So my question to you would be, if I was to ask you, what can we do to increase some of the police response time? What would your response be to me? Now, if anybody here knows me, on Facebook, I'm Future Whitsker.
I don't want you to move to Parma. Okay? I don't want anybody here to move to Parma, although Parma is a lovely town. My sister lives there, and she likes it. But you want a mayor who listens closely. Police response time, when we can build up the police force, you have every right to make sure that when you call, the police are there, that they treat people with dignity and respect, and that you get response. As the numbers in the police department decline, it's going to be a lot more difficult to be able to get a response. It just makes sense. Now, I think that we start off, from when I take office, I want at least 3 classes. And hopefully that will result in adding at least 100 police, okay? The first year. And then the second year, another 100 police. The goal is to build the force up, but it's also this. people who may be at desk jobs right now, we may need them to be out on the street, okay? And so I will work on organizing the police department so that it's more effective. And I think the police are going to like having me as mayor because I want what they want. I want to see law enforcement. I want to see effective crime fighting. And I think it'd be refreshing for them to have a mayor who took that approach. So for residents, response is mandatory. When you need help, not many of us call, but when we do call, we want somebody there. And we don't want to wait, if it's serious, we don't want to wait 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes or longer. It can be a nightmare, and it might be a matter of life and death. So, I'm very sensitive to that. Now, we need to be able to establish, what actually is the response time. And then once we do that, we work on improving it. One of the things I'm concerned about is our police are busy doing a lot of reporting. They're doing a lot of paperwork. We need to have some discussions about, is there a way that we can shortcut some of that paperwork? Because they're getting inundated with paperwork. So John, police response is a concern. We need to measure it based on the number of crimes, the number of calls. And you know what I'm finding out? I think there's a lot of violent crime in this town that's being underreported.
Yes.
This is what I'm finding out. There's violent crimes that are being underreported. For example, if there's a crime that involved a burglary, a felonious assault with a deadly weapon, and some other things, they'll just count it as one offense, right? Instead of 4 separate things. So we need to get a clean count as to how bad is the crime. I can tell you, I think it's a heck of a lot worse than it's being reported. And we need to be honest as a city. So, and that's what I'll bring. I'll bring honesty and accountability. And people may not always like what they hear, but I'll tell you the truth. I'm not going to give you a bunch of baloney. There's no point in it. You just want to know what's going on. And you want to know you have a mayor who has, that you have a zero. And you do. This is what I do. So do you have a follow-up question, John? Because
So just to be clear, you don't have a Kevin Kelly approach. You don't want me to move out of the city or run against you.
No.
Let's go for Dennis.
No, well, let me just wrap this up by, okay, go ahead.
After the election, if we get a new council person, hopefully, that is active on getting Holton Whites out of our neighborhood, will you help them and support them in that?
We're talking about the,
Holton Whites, the investing property. John, you know.
Yeah, they're the ones that are buying up the
So we
house.
have.
They buy homes and they
One
just
of the
dilapidate
council-
them.
One of the people running for council is.
yeah, let me just say, anybody, look, I saw this in Slavic Village for years where people would buy properties that were run down and then they'd flip them. And, I'm ready to work with you on that to be able to discourage that model. I got it though. I don't want to call out an individual right now, but I do think that the concerns of neighbors have to be respected. Okay, I got that and I appreciate you mentioning it. I want to say this, that thank you to the CWA and to John Garrow and to each and every one of you for attending. I wish that we weren't in this COVID period because I'd love to come around and give every one of you a hug. So this is a virtual hug, okay? But I need your help. We've got less than 3 weeks before the election. John, is there something that people can sign? Yeah, he'll get a notepad. Just put your name and your email address. You got signs here if you want to take it. But what I'd like you to do, if any of you and people watching, you go to Kucinich.com and sign up to make phone calls. We have, we have lists of for canvassing in Old Brooklyn, knocking on doors. We have phone lists. We have. We're reaching out to people because that's the approach that I use. There's I will tell you this, I have been in a lot of campaigns, right? I've held various offices. I've represented you in many ways. It's kind of difficult to say this, but this is one of the dirtiest campaigns I've ever seen. I mean, it's dirty on a level that makes you wonder if I'm running against a sociopath, okay? I don't use that lightly. There's something wrong with people who think that in order to get elected, that the only way that you can get elected is to either make up stuff or try to get people's attention with some vile dirt. You know, look, what you see is what you get with me. I don't have strings behind me. You know, I don't have anybody winding me up with a key in my back. You elect me mayor, I'll be your mayor. No one else. No one's gonna have any reach into the office but you. So I need your help though. And I've got, so if you sign up, I'll make sure that we get information to you. If you want to make phone calls, we'll get your phone list. If you want to knock on doors, we'll do that. John, we have some signs here, right, that people can take?
There's about a dozen or so outside.
I've got some more in the car if you need it. I also have dear friend cards if any of you want to send out cards to your neighbors. But I need help. You know, I mean, I'm here with you. And if you want a city hall, you can call your own, and a mayor, you can call your own. Here I am. And that's why, for those who have been watching live stream, thank you for your attention. We can bring the city together and just make it a place that we not just love, but a place that we can see thrive. And that's what I'm dedicated to. So thanks again. I will, if you get a chance, just give me your name and address. And what I'll do, I'll make this a little bit easier by, we'll put a couple, we have 5 pens here. I'll put, we'll just put 5 pages down and that'll facilitate the movement of people out the door. But I really would like, if any of you can help at all, I'd love to have your help. And believe me, with a few days left or a couple weeks left, it can really make a difference. I mean, this is a good turnout, and I want to make sure that that we don't miss any opportunity to mobilize, particularly in Old Brooklyn. So here we are. So I want to. Oh, by the way, just so you know, if there's, when I was mayor, and this book chronicles that when I was mayor, I had a lot of health problems, and the job was a little bit stressful. And I was 31 years old when I took office, and I stood up for the people. But when you're younger, things can be a lot tougher than you take them later on in life, And just want you to know, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. I'm like raring to go. I get up out of bed every morning like it's the first day of school. I'm not kidding. So it's like, I can't wait, okay? You put me in there, I'm ready to go. So thank you. Let's win City Hall for the people. And I'll be there for you. Thank you.